Good morning, everyone. Here's an update surrounding Ukraine for August 26th. Before I get started, just want to say thanks for the donations. I donated $15 to Action Against Hunger. Keep those rolling in. I'm also evaluating, once we reach 3,500, potentially shifting the focus of the charity, but not entirely sure. Action Against Hunger is a great organization. We've given them $3,409 so far. But potentially there's others that I could spread the wealth to as well. So keep that in mind as you're donating to the channel and things like that. For now, it's still Action Against Hunger, but potentially when we reach a certain goal, maybe 3,500, maybe 4,000, we'll shift focus to maybe a different charity, one that is more Ukraine focused, or one that is a different global issue that needs to be addressed, maybe trafficking children, things like that. Anyways, moving on with Ukraine. On the 24th of August, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu told the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in China that Russia was deliberately slowing the pace of its military campaign in Ukraine to reduce civilian casualties. This is almost certainly misinformation. Russia's offensive has basically stalled because of poor Russian military performance and the fierce Ukrainian resistance. Shoigu and Putin have dismissed 6 generals mainly because of their lack of quick advancement. The day that he was speaking, a Russian SS-26 Iskander short-range ballistic missile struck a train in Ukraine that was carrying civilians. The Russians are claiming it was carrying military equipment, but so far, from what I've read, it was 25 civilians, and maybe more now, were killed in that strike. So again, Russians still continuing to use terroristic tactics to get their way and are targeting civilians. The United States Department of Defense has said sending fighter jets to Ukraine remains on the table, though no decisions have been made. Moving on, despite denials from Russia that they are not using the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant as a cover for staging military operations, satellite images from August 21st have shown Russian military equipment parking within 60 meters of reactors at the site. So again, they are using it. We have satellite footage. They're denying it, but that is extraordinarily dangerous. Thankfully, it seems like the area is de-escalating as Zaporizhia has been reconnected to the Ukrainian grid. Putin signed a decree to increase the number of Russian armed forces to 2.04 million, which is an increase of 137,000. This will boost the focus of combat personnel to 1.15 million, not counting the casualties they've experienced in the war in Ukraine. Additionally, Russia is offering volunteers up to $5,700 a month to fight in Ukraine, but often the proceeds are not being paid to soldiers, and there's been leaks of non-payments rolling throughout Russia, and that has deterred new recruits from signing up. For the first time in 25 years, the United Kingdom has stopped importing fuel from Russia, and as I said in a few videos ago, that Norway is now importing more fuel and gas into Europe than Russia for the first time in history. Alexander Lukashenko, the authoritarian leader of Belarus, who is pretty much Putin's best friend, and Belarus is a very close ally of Russia, congratulated Ukraine on its Independence Day, saying today's contradictions should not destroy long-term neighborly ties with the country. So, with Ukraine, that is. Ukrainian officials and observers found his comments quite galling, given Belarus is one of Russia's strongest supporters on the international stage. So I'm not sure what the Kremlin's response to that was, or if that was a direct request of the Kremlin to have him do such a thing, but I'm not entirely sure. You would think that Putin wouldn't be happy if Belarus is congratulating Ukraine on their independence, because that independence is a direct affront to Putin's claims that Ukraine shouldn't exist. Turkish President Erdogan has said that Finland and Sweden are receptive to Turkey's security demands after the 3 countries held talks over the 2 nations' bid to join NATO. The Turkish government has said Finland and Sweden have renewed their commitment to demonstrate full solidarity and cooperation with Turkey in the fight against all forms and manifestations of terror. This likely means that Turkey will not hold up Finland's and Sweden's ascension into NATO, and they should be joining here shortly. I'm not sure what the timeline will be, but Turkey would have been one of their biggest roadblocks, but it seems like those talks are progressing nicely. Creators of the world-famous Bayraktar drone, the Bayraktar brothers, in an interview with BBC, said that they will not sell drones to Russia. They said the money Russia is offering is not their priority and that they support Ukraine. So good on them for sticking to their morals in that regard. More and more, it seems like Turkey is coming around to more of the Western thinking, especially as the Russian atrocities just continue to come to light. It's hard to deny those when stuff like that is taking place. And that brings us to India, who actually voted to allow Zelensky to address the UN Security Council. This was the first time India has opposed Russia on the Ukrainian war and their stance within the Security Council, and just goes to show you that Russia is losing support from some of its not necessarily bigger allies. India was not really a huge ally, but they were just more of a partner, but they were one that they could count on to kind of rally behind Russia if need be, because they do have economic ties, but this was not the case, and it seems to be less and less the case going forward. Spain's defense ministry has announced that it will transfer air defense systems and armored vehicles to Ukraine as a part of military assistance, as well as Lithuania has crowdfunded 37 kamikaze drones to be purchased for Ukraine and be delivered. Finally, this is kind of a longer one, and just kind of discuss what's going on here. Russia is wasting a large volume of natural gas by burning it in huge orange flares near the Finnish border. This is at a time when they're cutting deliveries to the EU, and other European nations are shutting down their reliance on the Russian fuel. The Rystad Energy Consultancy, based in Norway, described Moscow's move as an environmental disaster, with about 9,000 tons of carbon dioxide being emitted every 24 hours. That's about as much as 0.5% of total EU daily needs in emissions. It's ridiculous. The flare is so big it can actually be seen from satellite images, which is at the compressor site of the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline, which has seen its flows drop significantly, both because Russia is punishing countries, but also because countries just aren't going to use Russian gas anymore as they find alternatives elsewhere. The understanding I have, and correct me if I'm wrong from energy experts, is the flaring of the gas is necessary because Russia does not have the storage capacity, and they just can't shut off the wells because the pressure that builds up causes damage to the wellheads. Now, kind of reminds me of what happened in Iraq in 91, I think it was, or maybe it was in the early stages of the most recent Iraq war, but I believe it was in 91 where they had those oil wells were just blasting flames up in the air because the pressure's uncontrollable. Similar situation here. The pressure's uncontrollable and you just can't shut it off. It has to be capped at the wellhead, and this basically means that you have to re-drill if you do that. And trying to cap it damages the wellhead. So natural gas, obviously being a gas, can't just be transported easily to other countries like China. That has to be turned into liquefied and put on a ship, and it's very difficult because of the location where this gas is located in Russia. So what people think about is pipelines, and the reality is pipelines that transport Russian gas to China are not really there. They have a pipeline or two, but really it only can handle 10 to 30 billion cubic meters, whereas the pipelines to Europe were 170 to 200 billion cubic meters. And if you were to just try to redirect the natural gas, you would need the capacity to do that, and they just don't have it. They've come to agreements to try to build it, but there's been technological problems in building pipelines between Russia and China, and there's just not enough time to do that. Now, we also need to remember that the natural gas that was produced for Europe is produced in a different location than it's produced in China, the ones that goes to China. So it's not like you can just connect them and divert it. So because they can't cap the well, because Europe's not taking the gas and the oil, they have to flare it, or they break their wellheads. So now Russia is burning somewhere around $10 million per day in natural gas and ruining the environment doing it because they can't ship to to Europe, but they also don't want to shut down the production. So if I miss something there, one of the energy experts let me know, but I think that's kind of a grasp of why this is happening. But everyone else, have a great weekend, and thanks.